Hi everyone! Today I want to talk to you about the most interesting reads I've done this year so far. I've just answered the mid-year tag in my other channel, and I wanted to bring here a few of the books that stand out in this first half of the year. And I'm considering here just January to June, so the first 6 months of the year. I didn't give many 5 stars. I think it was only 4 books. So in this list we have some 5 stars, some 4.5, and some 4 stars too. But all the books are books that I got myself thinking after I finished. And they're all contesters for the final list at the end of the year of the best readings of 2024. The first one is one of my favorite books of the year by far, which is the new Robert Jackson Bennett book, The Tainted Cup. This is the 7th book of the author that I read, and it became one of my favorites. This is a mix between his other stories, so he kind of drink of his own books to write a few elements here. Godzilla, that I wasn't expecting to enjoy as much as I did, and some type of Sherlock Holmes type of relationship and investigation between the main character and the older detective that he's following here. So in this story, people can undergo changes in abilities or just enhancing or gaining new abilities. Genius, who is the main character, he has the power of memorizing things. When he smells something, he can attribute image or situation to that smell. So he's making a lot of field work here for this detective. Anna is an older detective and she has some reclusive habits. She doesn't like to attend the scene of the things of the crimes that she's investigating. So she's sending Dean to do that. And this book starts with someone who just dropped dead, and it was not a usual way of dying. The person had a tree growing up from his body, and that's gaining some attention here. And this world suffers by the threat of these leviathans that came from the sea. So they are always in high alert. The city is always paying attention, and there's a lot of protections and signs to alert people here. And I really enjoy this adventure and how we learn about the story. The POV is great. The relationship between Dean and Anna is also highlight of the book. And all the things that we learn about this world and the little rules. We have a bunch of characters here too, and they always add something new to the narrative. And this book ends with a lot of questions. It's the first in a series. I think it's going to be a trilogy. So I'm very excited for the next books, and I will be reading them as soon as they are out. The second book is Funny Story by Emily Henry. And yes, for me, who is someone who doesn't like romance stories, this was a lovely surprise. This was my 6th book by the author and the first one that I gave a 5 stars. I really liked the protagonist and the conclusions that she reads by the end of the book about her life and how she wants to take control of her destiny and make decisions in life that are more thought through. So it's not just about the moment or about someone else. And one problem that I always had with Emily Henry's books, first of all, is the repetition. She always goes around the same subjects, but the fact that at the end of each book, the characters don't really think about their problems. We just have a quick solve of everything. I never was able to buy the resolution, I never knew if the character actually learned something or was anchoring the decision on the other person, because it's always a romance, so there's always a couple. And I think she did it in a very interesting way in this book. So it managed to talk to me in a way that the other ones hadn't yet. About the plot, we have Daphne here. She's about to get married. She moved out of her city to go with this guy that she's engaged. A few days before the wedding, he breaks up with her because his best friend tells that she's in love with him. And then he realized that he's in love with her too. And then Daphne is alone in this strange city and ends up living with who? Yes, the ex-boyfriend of the woman who is now dating her ex-fiancé. They're both heartbroken, but they don't talk very much. They're ignoring everything that happened. And big part of this book, it's both of them, but we are seeing the story through Daphne's eyes. Of course, it's more focused on her, but we see both characters finding ways of trying to cope with this feeling of being rejected and abandoned. And they had the same experience. So they kind of lean into each other to try to resolve this. But at the same time, they have their own problems to solve before dealing with a new relationship, or maybe dealing with the decisions they need to make to move on with their lives. And the end of the book, it really got me by surprise. I ended up in tears. That's not something that usually happens with me. It was a nice reading. The next book is The Fragile Threads of Magic, the new book in the Shades of Magic series by V. Schwab. Starts a few years after the end of the first trilogy, and I didn't even wanted to read this book. I only read it because of Goodreads Choice Awards. And then I was reading and I was so happy reading. Being back in this universe, in this world, this variety of Londons, it brings back so much good memories. And I didn't give any 5 stars for the first trilogy, but I gave to this one because there was a nostalgic feeling about seeing these characters, because we have old characters that were present in the first trilogy, but we also have new characters and they have their stories mixed together. But one thing that I noticed is that in the first trilogy, I spent a lot of time with those characters. A few of them, even by the end of the third book, I didn't know if I knew them. Entering this fourth book, years later, knowing everything that happened to them, now I could truly understand who they are. I knew what happened to them. I know why they are the way they are. I can understand why they behave the way they behave, how they will respond to something, and seeing the consequences of everything that happened. Because we had good things happening at the end of the trilogy, but we had some bad ones too. And that left a scar in a few of these characters, and we can see that. So it's a nice balance between the new characters that you have to figure it out who they are, and these old people that you already know so well if you read the first trilogy. So it was an incredible feeling. I really enjoyed the reading, and I ended up and I was like, okay, that's it. I didn't even want to read this book, and now it's a 5-star. It was my first 5-star of the year, and it needs to be in this list. The fourth book in this list is Inkblood Sister Scribe. I have my Brazilian edition here. The end, it's closed, but at the same time, we have a whole universe here. We could explore that. I can see she releasing other books and making this a series. I don't necessarily want that, but I can see that happening. This is a standalone, and it's a book about books, and these books have magic. But it's a little bit disturbing because this magic is not always good. So we have 2 half-sisters here. They are going to be the POVs of the story. And we have a third character who is a guy and is a little mysterious. But the book starts with one of the sisters arriving home, and she finds her dad laying down dead. And he has a book with him, and she realized that what killed him was the book. She then contacts her sister to ask for help. And her sister has been away from home for a long time now. And we have a mystery there too. Why she left home and why she's always moving around. The ending was a little bit rushed, but even then, I really enjoyed this reading. I enjoyed the connection that developed between the characters and how we were learning rules of this magic of these books step by step through the story. And beside that part, we also have several other themes through the story, like belonging and struggles related to family, how they're dealing with both things, like the mystery and how that is impacting their lives, even the mysteries that came with parts of their lives. And it was really nice to see all of this weaving together. I really like fantasies that can be executed in a standalone because I have too many series to read. And then we have Children of Time by Adrian Tchaikovsky. This is the Brazilian edition. This is the first book in a sci-fi series. This author is very known, I think, in the sci-fi world, but I don't think we have other books by him published here in Brazil yet. I'm gonna read his fantasy series this year, City of Last Chances. It's in my TBR of this month. And I think the cover of the third book was already announced. And I really enjoyed this one. It's a very strange book with strange POVs too. The series takes place in a distant future of Earth where things are not working out here and human race is trying to find a new Earth to live. And they send monkeys first to see if the planet was ready to receive humans. And the scientists that are working in this project, they kind of ignore some very important things. So the race that ends up developing in this new planet, it's not the monkeys, it's other things. In the international covers we have as clearly as this one, but by the cover you can see, or maybe you can guess, actually develop in this planet. And we have the POV of this race, and it's strange, but it's a good type of strangeness. I really enjoy books like that that make me uncomfortable. And we also have the POV of the humans who are still alive and trying to reach this new planet. And then we have a lot of surprises along the way. I think the most important thing is that this book tackles a number of subjects and topics and things that maybe we don't expect in a book, that we're gonna see so much things that are strange. Like, the author is very good into introducing very important topics into moments that could be just a simple dialogue or not even bring any reflection to the characters, but he discussed here a lot of things. They're very important and do that almost in a criticism of human race and how we deal with things in current days and how we see science and development and this future that can be ahead of us if we don't take care of our planet, and how we even more evolved as a race, as human beings, we can make such a simple mistakes based only on the arrogance of thinking that we know the best, that we know more, that we are the only capable race in the entire universe. This is just the first installment in the series, so I'm sure there's a lot to come, and I intend to read the other books. And I want to mention 6 other books. The first one's Venko by Cherry Di Malini. I'm probably not pronouncing correctly. This was the first book I read by her, and it's a book about witches, but modern ones. And I really enjoyed the plot and the things that she was saying in the book through the story. Here in Brazil, we have another book from her that was already published, and I will keep my eye on to read her next releases too. The other one's Calocaine by Karen Boy. I talked already about this book in the channel in my first vlog. This is a dystopian set in the 1940s, which set to have inspired 1984 by George Orwell. This book is constantly overlooked. We have a strange main protagonist here. By the way he looks at the world, we are not reading the story by the eyes of a hero, and that causes a little bit of discomfort in the reader, which is something that I really enjoy. The next book that I want to talk about is My Heart's a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. This is my second book by the author, and it's completely different from The Only Good Indians that was the first book that I read by him. And it's a fun book. It's a slasher story with a teenager protagonist, and I'm not even a fan of slasher movies, but this was a fun read, and I intend to keep reading the series. And this year I finally finished Full Metal Alchemist. I already seen the anime too, so I knew how it would end, but it was incredible in the same way, and I'm really happy that I finished. And since I read like 10 volumes this year, I think was a highlight of the first half of the year. And lastly, 2 fantasies that I read, and I was very surprised about it. Not because I didn't expect them to be good, but I think it's more about the way they were put together and the new things that I was able to get in contact with as a fantasy reader. I'm talking about Empire of Silence and The Sword of Kagan. They're very different. We have a standalone and the first book of a huge series, but they're both good experiences, and Empire of Silence I intend to keep moving forward with the series. And of the 11 titles that I mentioned, Funny Story, The Fragile Threads of Power, Ink Blood, Sister Scribe, Children of Time, Calocaine, and Full Metal Alchemist, so 6 of the 11 titles, have already been published here in Brazil, and The Tainted Cup, Venko, Empire of Silence, The Sword of Kagan, and My Heart's a Chainsaw are still waiting in publication. That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and now I want to hear from you in the comments about your top 5 best reads of 2024. And if you're new here, please subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!